Hello everyone and welcome to the 2024 edition of my yearly highlights. In this video, we will be counting down my top 10 most meaningful runs of the year, and I'll briefly explain the significance behind them. First things first, I want to say a huge thank you to all my friends in CTR. I wouldn't have achieved any of these times if it weren't for all of you. This year's list was once again a difficult one due to so many runs being in consideration for the top spot. Not to mention there were some great runs that missed out on the list altogether. Since I'm sure we've all waited long enough for this video, let's get started. Number 10, Mega Mix Mania. I'm working toward trying to get a decent time on all tracks. The 1:59 was always a time that I wanted to get, but the mud cut was an issue for me since I had never been strong hopping on off-road. This year I've improved this a lot with the help of Tsujumi. I'm still not consistently great at it, but at least I can now do it well enough to be able to get the 1:59 here on Mega Mix. Despite this not being a favourite track of mine, I did enjoy this sub-journey. The only annoying part of this track was trying to avoid the lap 2 blade, but once my lap 1s were fast enough, it became less of a problem. Number 9, Gingerbread Joyride. The grinding for this track happened at the start of the year when I ended up with a 1:48.81. I then returned to the track in August for one day with the intention of pushing a 6x. I then went away on holiday for 2 weeks. When I returned, the glitchless rule set had been created, which made me very excited to go off and play the tracks that I'd never done glitchless. As far as my gingerbread time goes, I do intend to someday come back and improve this run. I'm not very good at the shortcuts on this level, and the lap 3 jellies are a bit of a nuisance, but this is still one of my favourite tracks in the game to time trial. Number 8, Crash Cove. This originally started out as a goal to get a 5x glitchless. Once I got the 5x glitchless, I decided to learn the bridge grind and go for a 4x NMG. Earlier in the year, I'd fallen short of my goal times on several tracks, so I was determined to get this one. I got a 54 6 times before finally getting the 4x. It was an incredible feeling getting the 4x, but the lap 1 was not a very strong split for getting the 155. I guess bad lap 1s are a thing for me on this track, considering my glitchless PB also has a bad lap 1. Returning here in the future seems likely for me, as my splits give me the notion to one day pursue a 3x NMG. Number 7, Inferno Island. This started out with setting myself the goal to achieve a 5x. I did that and claimed it was one of my best runs in the game. I then went off and did some other tracks, but part of me still wasn't quite settled in the back of my mind. I knew that I could do even better if I put 3 good laps together. It seemed doable considering the track itself is very basic. 1 month later, I returned to Inferno, but I found myself unable to PB for days. I was totally stuck at the 1:31.55 time, so I sought out advice from my good friend Versetti. Once Versetti showed me some key areas to save time, I got the 4x the very next day. Number 6, Slide Coliseum. At the start of the year, I had a short break from CTR. When it was time to play again, Slide was the track that I really wanted to play. At the time of doing this, I didn't fully understand the second tyre jump, and I wasn't very good at hopping on off-roads, so I was at a huge disadvantage. But still, I set myself the goal of getting a 1:31. It took me just 2 days to lower my time by a full second. Slide Coliseum is one of my favourite tracks in the game, so I can confidently say that I'll someday return to try and improve this time. This track not only got me back into form, but set me up for a great year of PBs. Number 5, Tiny Temple. My love for this track began last year when I learned how much fun it is to time trial. So this year, I set myself the goal to beat my unrestricted time with a glitchless run. Once I achieved that goal, I decided to try and improve my unrestricted time. I was unsure how I would go since I'm primarily a D-pad player who has to drive analog on polsed tracks due to remapping. But the great thing about Tiny Temple is how easy the track is to drive. The only hard part of Tiny Temple unrestricted is the inconsistency of the speed ghost. I'm unsure which of the 2 times are better out of my glitchless or unrestricted time, but the funny thing is, in a way I actually think I enjoy the unrestricted grind more. The speed ghost is fun when you get a good one, and it was actually fun to play analog for a change. Number 4, Hot Air Skyway. Earlier this year, I had a month where my goal was to improve all of my weakest tracks. For the most part, these were also my least favourite tracks. I set myself the goal of a 2:02, which I not only achieved but learned how much fun Hot Air Skyway is. After that, Onks told me to go for a 2:01, but I didn't think that was quite achievable for me. 2 weeks later, I returned to Hot Air and also learned how to do the NMG cut thanks to Megumi and Tsujumi. This not only saved me a lot of time but made the track even more fun to play. I then got a 201.75 and was starting to experience those poor mistakes that occur in runs from overplaying a track, so I decided to leave that time. That wasn't until Onks had another brilliant idea. How about a sub 201? No way, that's way too difficult for me, right? Anyway, I think you see where this is going. 3 weeks later, I returned and finished the journey of what was my most fun sub goal of 2024. I was actually very lucky lap 3 turned out the way it did, considering I was playing with the worst nerves I've ever experienced in CTR. Number 3, Assembly Lane. This is one of those times that was only possible with the help of someone who understands the track. I can think of none better than the one and only Megumi. I have never been particularly good at Assembly Lane, but for the most part of the last few years I have enjoyed my time practicing the track. I'm very happy with how this run turned out. My Ghost was a 2:20.01 that missed the mud cut on both laps 2 and 3. So going into it, I knew that clearing the mud even just once gave me a good chance of getting the sub. Lap 2, I clear the mud, but I make a critical error in the spiral that allows my Ghost to catch up. I'm not too concerned. I know that clearing the mud lap 3 will once again give me the chance to break away. So, I clear the mud, and once again, I make the same mistake in the spiral that allows my Ghost to catch up. Again. It was at that moment I remembered that my Ghost takes a slightly wide exit on the shortcut, so with a good finish, the sub might still be possible. I was extremely nervous at this point, but I managed to put the ending together nicely to close out the sub. Number 2, Sewer Speedway. At the time of recording this, my PB currently sits at a 141.73. My goal here is to get a 6x glitchless. The other day I failed a 6x run due to losing reserves at the final corner. I got far too greedy and even missed hitting the pad twice before entering the tunnel. When I lost reserves, my heart dropped and I felt sick to my stomach. Since failing this run, I've tied my 73 with an even better Ghost, so I still feel very confidently that I can achieve a run as good as the one that I lost. I fail runs daily, which sounds bad, but it gives me confidence knowing that soon I'll get my chance again. If I have achieved the 6x since posting this, I still would have put this run number 2 on the list due to the significance behind the run that took this year's top spot. Whatever time I end up with here, whether it's now or in the future, I give all the credit to my friend Tsujumi. He taught me everything I know about this track. Thanks to him, Sewer Speedway is my favourite track in the game and soon to be the best time I'll ever achieve in CTR. Number 1, Polar Pass. I'm sure a lot of you probably saw this one coming, but the reason this run sits in the top position is likely for a completely different reason, but we'll get to that. This was hands down my most difficult sub I've ever achieved. Originally the goal wasn't even to get the sub. I was making a video for my favourite tracks in the game and needed footage of me time trialling Polar Pass. After a few runs I was getting ahead of my Ghost very consistently and decided to try and go for a PB. Once I secured my first PB I was immediately hooked and decided to go for the sub. During this process I had Tsujumi, Onks and Karma helping me every step of the way. At the low 156 it started to become extremely difficult. It took me 1 week for every one frame that I improved. From 156.08 I had over 50 recordings on my PlayStation of lap 3 fails on sub pace which had it all. From losing reserves to failing the big boy jump, to losing reserves, to failing the final jump, and of course, failing the final jump to, you guessed it, losing reserves. My controller even broke. After 3 days of my cart randomly turning into walls, I realised it and went and bought a new controller. I had started to lose hope, and I honestly would have totally given up on this if I didn't have so many of you encouraging me to keep going. I took a few days off for a mental reset, and when I returned I arrived at 156.01. I don't know why, but when I got this I just knew I had it in the bag. I was surprisingly calm lap 3. In a way, it was a blessing in disguise doing a bad big boy lap 3 to allow my Ghost to get ahead. I was now able to chase it down without the fear of messing up from being in the lead. It was only once I cleared the final jump that I got ahead, and the excitement pretty much immediately kicked in as soon as my cart hit the ground. I crossed the line and achieved this incredible sub. That was a great feeling, but what was even better was when I posted this video, all the messages, all the comments I got from all of you, my friends, all congratulating me on what an incredible journey this has been. Now that was my best moment of 2024.